Good morning, everyone. It is 8:48 in the morning and I'm on my way to work, and I wanted to come in to first of all start off this vlog because I'm over halfway through The Stone Sky and I haven't even really talked about this book at all. So this is the third and final book in the Broken Earth trilogy, and if you are not aware, I am hosting an NK Jemisin read-along over the course of 2023. And that basically means we're going to be reading everything she's written, and we started off the year where we were reading her most popular series, which is the Broken Earth trilogy. Now, this is a kind of fantasy sci-fi-ish kind of story. It's placed in the future, and there's basically a lot of stuff going on within it, so you'll have to go check out my other two vlogs if you need a refresher on the books at all. But basically in this video we're going to be going over some spoilery content that is going to be involved in books 1 and 2, and talking a lot about what's happening in book 3. So if you have not read this series at all, I would highly suggest doing so because it's a great series. But I also would say you should avoid this video to avoid spoilers, because I am going to be talking a little bit at length about some of the stuff that's going on in the book, because I do these vlogs for my friends that are joining me in the read-along and talking about the book itself. So let me put my sunglasses on though, because it's a little sunnier than I expected it to be this morning. Much better. So in book 3, basically what we've learned is that Esun, who is our main character, had been tasked in book 2 with essentially saving the world from destruction of the 5th season, because the 5th season basically is like an end of the world kind of thing. Now, the person that started the 5th season, whose name is Alabaster, he was Esun's lover at one point and father of a child of theirs. After the two of them finally reunite, he tells her in the second book, The Obelisk Gate, that basically she is meant to fix the world by bringing the moon back into orbit. And you learn that in The Obelisk Gate, when the Earth basically first went into the first season, for instance, and like when it first started kind of falling apart, what happened was that there were these obelisks that were created somehow, nobody really knows why, but these obelisks basically had malfunctioned to an extent where it threw the moon out of orbit, and then therefore, according to the mythology, Father Earth had then basically blamed the origins or the magic wielding people in this world, and is why he had basically cursed them and essentially, you know, thought of them negatively and affected them negatively. So Alabaster believes that there is this way to bring the moon back into orbit, which would then fix a lot of the issues that have been going on in the world and would essentially right things. And he believes that Esun is the one to do it. Now, the reason he thinks that is because he kind of has all of this knowledge. In the first book, you learn that when they're developing their relationship, basically, that Alabaster is what's considered a 9-ringer. Basically, the more powerful that you get and the more disciplined you are with your magic, you become like a so many ringer, usually basically meaning that like you're kind of, there's a hierarchy essentially, and Alabaster's pretty high up there when Esun first meets him. Anyway, so now going into book 3, essentially what's happened is that based on the ending of the Obelisk Gate, where Esun had to basically save an entire community that she was a part of from another community that was planning an attack, she had opened up basically this wealth of power and magic and had destroyed every single person in the rival community. And doing so, though, did cause her to lose her arm and have it turn to stone and basically like come off. So essentially from there, when they realize that there's this other land that they can go over to spread their community, and when their community no longer has the resources that it needs because of what had happened in the big battle at the end of the Obelisk Gate, Esun basically goes with them over there, and she's really trying to figure out what exactly it is that she's supposed to do. And in that time, she finds out that her daughter, Nasun, who has been missing since the first book, she's been searching for because her husband had taken Nasun away from her after killing their son. So when she finds out basically that Nasun is alive and that there, you know, is the ability for her to go to her, she starts to try to figure out where she is. But then she finds out that Nasun is also being trained to try to bring the moon back. And the person that is training her is actually Esun's former guardian from when she was younger, Shafa. And in book 2, we learn Shafa basically has this kind of back and forth thing going on where he kind of basically is going against everything he's been taught, everything that he's trained for, and it is eating away at him. Like, it is actually physically tearing him apart in this book. And you see that as he is traveling with Nasun and they are trying to get things moving and grooving, and Nasun is full on, you know, game to bring the moon back, do whatever is necessary, and she's only like 11 or 12 in this book. Like, she's very, very young. And I think in a lot of ways she's doing this to prove something to her mother, because in the books you learn that Nasun was not treated very well by Esun, and it's because of the way Esun was taught of how to use her orogenic powers and how to train with them. She kind of did the same thing with her daughter, which was not at all the way that her daughter needed to be taught. That was not what was necessary. And so Esun basically has no idea what Nasun is capable of, how powerful she is. All she knows through people telling about Nasun, and Hoa, who is this stone eater that has been kind of palling around with her and is kind of the person that is helping Esun along the way. She's just basically figuring out that Nasun is extremely powerful. She's capable of a lot of great things. And Esun, I guess, is just trying to get to her before things go south really, really quickly, because there's no telling what this will do to Nasun, because the power that Esun has already used has been slowly eating away at her and turning her to stone. So my assumption is that she's trying to be mom and save her daughter and, you know, do something before her daughter does it and her daughter loses her life. There is another perspective involved in this. They're kind of these aside chapters where it's like, it's another character that we've never really learned about before, but they seem to have some kind of like god-like thing going on, because it seems that they have some kind of power and they are aware of what both Nasun and Esun are trying to do. And I don't know whether I would actually say that they are gods of any kind, like, you know, kind of thinking like all the gods of Olympus kind of like crowding around the table and talking about stuff. Like, it's not, it's that vibe, but I don't know if that's exactly it. Like, I don't know if these people actually have any godlike powers. But nonetheless, basically these guys are like kind of overseeing everything that's going on. There is some infighting going on, because there's some people who are thinking that origins, like, they're, you know, need to be done away with, all these things. But it's not really clear how all of that ties in with the rest of the story, other than the fact that they have something to do with how, I guess, the obelisks maybe run. Like, again, it feels very much like they're the Greek gods in Olympus sitting around the table discussing how somebody should get smited, you know? And that's kind of the vibe that you get from them. But I don't, again, really know what that is. I think I have to do a little bit more digging into that, because I'm, at this point, not sure really what their purpose is, other than kind of being the overseers of everything that's going on. So far it's not too bad. I will say, I feel like for some reason there's nothing that is beating the first book as a 5-star. The first book was like absolutely amazing, and book 2 was really good. I liked it a lot, but I don't know, this one, it's not like it's bad, it's just I don't get the same feeling that I did with book 1, and I think that that is a little upsetting for me, because like I want to really like give every single book in the series a 5-star, but I just can't, because it's not hitting the same way that the 5th season is. But I would be willing to bet that because I'm just now about halfway through it, that I still have enough to get, you know, really excited about something, see how things are gonna go, especially once I figure out what this weird group of people is all about. I think that that would make things a little bit easier on me to understand, like, the whole scope of the story, all that stuff. So I am not necessarily discounting the fact that it's possible that I could give this a 5-star. I just right now it is not hitting in the same way that the first book did, which I think is to be expected in a series. Like, the first book is like a lot of stuff all at once, and it's kind of one of those things where like you just get so wrapped up in this new world, this brand new setup, and then by the time book 2 comes around, a lot of the luster is gone, and then by book 3, you know, you're kind of like not necessarily feeling humdrummy about it, but it's just, it doesn't feel the same as when you first experienced it, if you know what I mean. So I feel like that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now, which is fine. I just, you know, wish that that was not the case. But I'm about ready to get into work here, so I gotta go. But I'm really excited for how, you know, the rest of this is gonna go. I have like the last half of it to go through. I should be able to hopefully get it done either today or tomorrow. But I'm just really excited to see how ultimately this whole thing ends, because I heard that it was supposed to be a pretty big splash ending. So we'll have to see. Okay, I'm on my lunch break. I'm home and I'm taking care of some dishes, but I wanted to hop in because there's been some stuff that's happened in the last chapter I just listened to that I kind of got to talk about. First of which is that, something I forgot to mention earlier is that Esun is now with Lerna. Lerna, who we basically, funny enough, learned about in book 1. He was a friend of hers that now is a lover. In this book, he becomes her lover. And one of the things that we figure out is that, and especially in this chapter, is that Esun is pregnant with Lerna's baby. Now, because she is turning to stone, that places more of an importance on getting some stuff done quickly. But I don't know whether or not that would change anything. Like, if she was to go on this quest, if that would basically cause her to like turn more into stone and then lose the baby. Bubba, hush. Oscar's mad at me because he would not go potty when we were outside, so he's getting sassy. Anyway, so now though, what they figured out is that essentially, if Esun is to go through with this plan, you know, she could lose the baby, she could lose now Lerna, who she's, you know, kind of had a thing for since book 1. But like now that she has him as her lover, like she doesn't want to give him up kind of thing. And, you know, that could cause other problems down the line. So she has to kind of make the decision of whether she wants to go through with this plan or if she wants to kind of let things just happen and, you know, let basically Esun take care of things. Now, additionally, when she meets up with Hoa later, Hoa tells her that it is actually likely that Alabaster's still alive, because remember, Alabaster supposedly died in the last book. He had turned to stone completely and was destroyed. So turns out, apparently, when somebody turns to stone, they then therefore become a stone eater, which was actually something that we were theorizing in the live show for the Obelisk Gate. We basically had theorized the idea that when you became a stone, like how exactly did the stone eaters come around? A lot of us were theorizing that it's possible that people who turn to stone end up becoming the stone eaters that then become, you know, something greater. Now, it's not clear that that is exactly what Alabaster has become, but Hoa has basically hinted at the fact that that's a possibility, which is crazy. Like, that is a huge thing. Okay, I'm gonna take Oscar outside real quick again, and while I'm out there, we'll talk. So now begs the question, is it possible that if Esun ends up becoming fully stone, does she then become a stone eater? Well, according to Hoa, it can go a couple different ways, where either she would turn into a stone eater and essentially kind of live in like a there but not there kind of sense, like Alabaster is at this point. But he also said that it's possible that she could become basically lost, which in my mind essentially means that she would basically die and not have the ability to become a stone eater. So there must be something in death that when people are turned to stone, either they make the choice to become a stone eater, or there's something that goes on, like a higher power has kind of the determining factor of whether they do or don't. Kind of like the idea of like somebody making the decision of you going to either heaven or hell based on what you did in your life. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out, because for one, Hoa even says to Esun that if she doesn't want to go through with this, doesn't want to go through with trying to bring the moon back, she doesn't have to. And she can live out her life as a, you know, fairly normal origin and have her kid with Lorna and, you know, live a pretty happy life. And, you know, it's one of those things where, like, she has to make this judgment of, like, does she sacrifice herself for the greater good of the world, or does she, for once in her life, I think, be selfish a little bit? Because I feel like while she may have been selfish in some ways, like over the course of these books, this is like the biggest thing. Like, she's done everything to protect herself, to protect her family, first and foremost, and people she cares about, being more selfless in that regard. So is it possible she could become selfish and just kind of give everything up in order to be able to live a happy life with Lorna and their unborn child? So I don't really know whether or not she's gonna go for one or the other. I would think that because this is like the ultimate end of the book, and because usually ultimate ends include ultimate deaths, that she is going to go through with the original plan and basically end up probably turning into stone herself, just like Alabaster did. So I'm willing to bet that's the case, but you never know, things could change. And then as far as Nasun, I'm just getting back to another chapter of hers, so I don't really know what's happened since the last time. But at the very least, I would like to know more about what exactly it is Nasun is planning and why she's doing certain things, because I'm kind of shocked that somebody so young would do something that like so dangerous. But at the same time, I think, like I said earlier, she's trying to prove herself and her capabilities and all those things. So I guess we'll see.
Hey guys, so editing Gabby here at this point. I did not realize I never ended this video, so I apologize for that. But basically, I did finish The Stone Sky, and it was like a 4 out of 5 stars. I kind of felt the same way about it that I did with The Obelisk Gate, where even by the end of it, as great as the ending was and bombastic and like kind of what I was expecting to happen, it just didn't hit overall in the way that I had wanted it to. I think that this was a series that I held such very high expectations for, and it fell a little flat, which is fine. It wasn't awful by any means. I just don't think that this was a series that like was for me for the first read. I think this though is a series I will have to read a few times, which I'm more than okay with, because I enjoyed it enough to where I would love to read it again and, you know, get the books and be able to annotate them when I'm able to. But this is definitely a series that the pieces will not come together until I've read it a few times. And that's okay. Like, that's something that is fairly common for, you know, very different kinds of fantasy work for me personally. I think that that is a pretty common issue for me. So I'm not necessarily disappointed, but I wish that it would have been 5 stars all the way around. The ending of this, I think, like I said, was what I was expecting. It was kind of what I was thinking about when it comes to how the ultimate end of the story would go. It was really sad though, and I do feel like it was maybe possibly something that could have been avoided, but at the same time I feel that any other way that the story could have been done would not be to Esun's character. And I'm curious to see if in the future N.K. Jemisin will expand more on this particular world, whether it's another type of series that's going to follow Nasun more, or if we learn more about Shafa in like another like a prequel series, if you will, of some kind, or even about Alabaster, and you know, something like that, or something about the Stone Eaters. Like, I would love to see more come from this world in particular, especially in terms of understanding how the world got to this particular point, because this is supposedly a very futuristic kind of fantasy story, which is very odd for a lot of people. It's like there's either sci-fi or fantasy. There's not really a lot of times something melding the two, and this is something that has melded the two. It's very fantasy based in its roots with the magic system and the fact that there isn't really a ton of technology that is present in the story, but it is supposedly placed in like the 2400, like the 25th century basically. So it is interesting to start thinking about like how exactly would somebody come up with the background of this story. So overall, I really did enjoy it. I just again feel that it wasn't hitting the same exact way as the 5th season did, but definitely will be something I would like to go back to on my own to, you know, annotate and really find little pieces here and there that I might have missed this first read, because I feel like that's always the case. I always feel like on rereads I find more things that I missed the first time, and I think that this is a great series to be able to do that with. So definitely will be reading this series again in the future, especially when I feel like I am able to wrap my head around it a little bit easier. That is going to be the end of this vlog, and that therefore is the end of the Broken Earth trilogy. Thank you to those of you that decided to join me on the NK Jemisin Read Along with this series in particular. We are in April going to be having, on April 1st, the live show for the Stone Sky, so be sure to be here on April 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that live show. I will have Courtney with me once again to wrap up the end of the Broken Earth trilogy, and then in April we will be moving on to a brand new series with an additional graphic novel that will be involved. So we'll have 2 books to read in April, but because one's a graphic novel, it's kind of optional because it's if you have the time to, you know, read something a little quicker. But we will be starting with the 100,000 Kingdoms series. I don't know what the name of it is off the top of my head, but it's the second most popular series of NK Jemisins that I have found. So if you're interested in continuing with the NK Jemisin Read Along, I highly suggest you do so, because we will be reading all of her work for the entirety of the year. So after that series, we'll be moving on to something different, and so on to the end of the year. But if you only wanted to stick around for the Broken Earth trilogy, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you, you know, at least think about coming and joining us again for anything else that we will be doing this year, because it's definitely going to be an interesting time. I'm very excited to see how the 100,000 Kingdoms is, because I have heard a lot of people say that if you didn't necessarily absolutely love the 5th season, that you would like the other series, and vice versa. So I have a feeling that I may like the 100,000 Kingdoms a little bit more, because I think it is supposed to be a little bit more fantasy as opposed to fantasy and sci-fi elements combined. But with that, like I said, that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!